and we believe that there's room for review and possibly improvement in the notification system.
Leung Chun-ying announces measures over booksellers' case, but will they ease fears among Hong Kong people? Simplified immigration procedures for those heading to Australia. And debate heating up ahead of Britain's EU referendum.
Good evening. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying has announced measures taken in the wake of the booksellers case. Among them, writing to Beijing to express Hong Kong's concern and reviewing a cross-border notification mechanism. But as Caleb Leung reports, critics say more needs to be done.
I chaired a meeting this morning and made three decisions. One is to write to the central authorities to express our concern over this case. The second is to review the notification mechanism between Hong Kong and the mainland. And we believe that there's room for review and possibly improvement in the notification system. Third, if necessary, I shall dispatch my government colleagues to follow up on these points.
Comments by the CE today as he tried to allay concerns among the people of Hong Kong about the booksellers case. Leung Chun-ying insists, according to the Basic Law, mainland law enforcement authorities are not allowed to operate in the city. Leung also said Hong Kong police have been trying to contact bookseller Lam Wing Kee and were waiting for his response. The CE stressed his government will protect Lam's personal safety. Claims made by the bookseller last week, including, for example, that he had been detained by a special central unit across the border, have been disputed by other booksellers but have still raised concerns about the one country, two systems principle.
There has been a mixed reaction across the political spectrum towards the chief executive's announcement. Some pan-democratic lawmakers accuse Leung Chun-ying of not doing enough.
I am both surprised and disappointed to note that up to this moment, the chief executive still takes the view that there is no necessity or no urgency for him to take up this matter personally and directly with Beijing. He is still waiting for a report to be compiled.
So far, he's done nothing. And now all he said is he will write a letter, which to many people is very little, very late, and it's very pathetic.
LegCo President Zhang Yuk-sing said there is currently not enough information to pass judgment on the issue.
We cannot base all our discussions about the matter on unfounded stories. So what's most important is for the chief executive and the SAR government to find out the facts and let Hong Kong people know.
On the cross-border notification mechanism, lawmaker Regina Yip, who was a former security secretary, hopes Beijing could act in a more timely manner. Currently, mainland authorities inform their Hong Kong counterparts within 15 days in a majority of cases. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Clearing immigration in Australia just got a little easier. The Immigration Department announced today eligible locals will be able to enjoy the benefit of e-channel service. Rachel Leung has more.
The Immigration Department announced today that it has implemented the mutual use of automated clearance services in Australia. E-channel smart gates will be set up at international airports at Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, Cairns, Darwin, the Gold Coast and Perth. That means SAR electronic passport holders aged 16 or above with no adverse record in Australia and hold a valid visa for visiting the country will be able to skip the long lines at immigration counters and head over to the smart gates. Having completed an incoming passenger card, those eligible can proceed to a self-service kiosk and place their electronic passport onto the passport reader, and a SmartGate ticket will be issued. Then, rather than lining up at immigration counters, they can insert the SmartGate ticket at the newly set up e-channel, and the system will perform identity verification. And there is no need to stamp your passport. As for departing Australia, both electronic and non-electronic SAR passport holders will be able to go through the smart gates as long as they are at least 120 centimeters tall.
The face recognition and the finger recognition technique, the accuracy, both accuracy is very high, and they are very near, and they are suitable for the identity check. So instead of the manual check, right now most of this technique can use for the identity check for the person use the what we call the e-gate.
The Immigration Department says countries like South Korea, Singapore and Germany are already enjoying the benefits of the channel, and it will continue to extend the service to other countries by the end of this year. Rachel Ng, TVB News.
Now to the latest in the arrest of Wukon village leader Lin Zuoluan in Guangdong province. A rally against illegal land grabs scheduled for tomorrow is expected to go ahead as planned. And that's when Lin's supporters, who continue to plead for his innocence, plan to submit a petition letter to the town government. Authorities detained Lin on Saturday, accusing him of taking bribes. They said today that since 2012, Lin had abused his position to accept many bribes on a number of construction projects.
Next, a war of words between China and Indonesia over the shooting of a Chinese fishing vessel in the South China Sea. Jakarta says it will continue to take decisive action against foreign ships operating illegally in waters under its jurisdiction. Indonesian Vice President Yusuf Kala said his government would send a message to Beijing. That message would demand that it respect Jakarta's sovereignty over waters around the Natuna Islands. China has not disputed Indonesia's sovereignty there, but Kala said Chinese ships sometimes claim they have the right to operate in waters in the area because they are traditional Chinese fishing grounds. Beijing protested over the weekend. It said one person was injured after an Indonesian naval vessel fired on a mainland fishing boat on Friday. The Chinese Foreign Ministry accused the Indonesian Navy of abusing its military force. That is the third such confrontation reported this year.
Campaigning for Britain's vote on European Union membership resumed yesterday after a three-day pause prompted by the killing of pro-EU lawmaker Joe Cox. But pledges of a more respectful tone were quickly tested by a fresh row over immigration. Alan Booknear reports.
Both sides sought to adopt a more measured response, paying respect to Cox, whose suspected killer is believed to be a neo-Nazi.
Wherever we see intolerance, hatred, division, we should try and drive it out of our communities, out of our public life. And we have to be careful that debates, yes, they can be passionate, but we have to make sure that they're not based on those things.
3 opinion polls showed the Remain camp recovering some momentum, although the overall picture shows the two sides still very close. The head of the UK Independence Party and Leave campaigner Nigel Farage suggested Cox's death may have slowed down his side's momentum.
There was a big momentum developing right across the country. A tragic death, a pause, very difficult to know or to see.
Farage also tried to deflect criticism of a controversial billboard showing a flood of refugees that both sides have called inflammatory.
And if you see what Chancellor Merkel did last summer by saying, just come in unlimited numbers, so we do not want to stay part of a union that is failing in every regard.
That the far right have been allowed to grasp the agenda. And Farage, for example, puts up that appalling poster which has a picture of a lot of desperate people fleeing from war, saying they're coming to threaten us.
Well, when I saw that poster, I shuddered. I thought it was the wrong thing to do. Now, again, I must stress, I believe in free speech. I don't want to deny anyone a platform.
In Rome, people began an attempt to set a new world record for the longest kissing chain and send a message of solidarity to the UK.
Kissing chain that will start in Rome and will go through Paris and Berlin and then to London to show that the majority of Europeans is actually close to Great Britain in this moment of mourning for the death of Joe Cox, and we honestly hope that UK will stay in Europe.
Alan Booknia, TVB News.
In recognition of World Refugee Day, the United Nations is calling on governments around the world to do more to help those fleeing war and poverty. This comes amid the latest sobering statistics that 1 in every 113 people on the planet is now a refugee.
Fighting in places such as Syria, Afghanistan, Burundi, and South Sudan has driven the latest mass exodus.
Unfortunately, the number in the last year has gone up by 10%. We're now at 65 million people. 2/3 are internally displaced people, the most difficult to reach. 1/3 are refugees. 90% are in middle-income countries or in poor countries. 50% of the refugees are children.
After surviving near-death experiences to reach safer borders, asylum seekers are still having to face walls, tougher laws, and xenophobia.
Barriers are rising everywhere. And I'm not just talking of walls, but I'm talking about legislative barriers.
Conditions are deteriorating for the 1 million Syrian refugees living in Lebanon.
Humanitarian assistance can cover a certain number of needs for the most vulnerable, but we cannot pay the rent for everyone.
Thousands of people across German cities formed human chains to protest against racism concerning their 1 million migrants. Hundreds of protesters honked their vehicles around the French embassy in London after they were denied a mission to support refugees at the camp in Calais.
I used to be like that. I know how it's not easy. That is why I will never stop to show my solidarity.
Iraq has especially been hit hard with its refugee crisis, and people have stopped donating to the cause. The government-run camps are struggling to shelter people fleeing Fallujah during recent military battles between Iraqi forces and Islamic State militants.
What we notice now is that there are so many refugee crises around the world, including newer crises like Syria and Iraq, and the attention of donors is really stretched.
The UN is urging leaders around the globe to do more to end the wars that are causing the mass exodus of people.
Still ahead in our newscast, customs officers crack down on shops selling fake makeup. Shootout at Olympic Hospital in Rio de Janeiro. And LeBron James and the Cavs crown NBA champs.